Hi everyone, in this course Dashboard in a Day with Power BI, I'm going to be teaching you how you can use Power BI to create interactive dashboards and also reports. I'm going to be your instructor Adejumo Ridwan Suleiman. In this particular course, I'm a data scientist. So the prerequisites and setup steps you need for this course is the minimum computer specifications you'll be needing is a computer with 2 cores and 4 gig RAM, which is running on a Windows 8 at minimum or Windows Server 2008 R2 or later. And also the minimum display you'll be needing is at least 1440 by 900 resolution or 1600 by 900 resolution is recommended. And also an internet connectivity. You need an internet connectivity for this particular course. And also Microsoft Power BI desktop installed. So I'm going to be sharing the link to the Microsoft Power BI desktop in the description, so you can download it from that link. You can also search for it on your Microsoft store and download it. So for those that are using Mac, you might not be able to use Microsoft Power BI desktop. So that's why I can see that the requirement is requiring a Windows operating system. And also Microsoft Power BI desktop requires Internet Explorer 10 or later. You can also use another browser tool of your choosing. And you can sign up for Power BI. You can using this particular link, which I'll also be sharing. To be able to set up Power BI online, you need a business email address. And also, if you have an existing account, you can also go to this particular link and click it. So, and sign in using your Power BI account. So this is what you are going to be building in this particular course, Dashboard in a Day. You can see you are going to be building a Van Housden analytic dashboard. Van Housden analysis. So Van Housden is an organization, and they're trying to see what is they're trying to check their sales analysis and also their competitor analysis. So they're trying to see how they've been performing over the years in terms of revenue and growth, and also the revenue by country. They're trying to see their revenue over various countries, and also they also want to compare this with also their competitors to see how they're performing against their competitors. This is the Dashboard in a Day. This is the link to the Dashboard in a Day materials. So you can just click on English to download the attendees materials, and for other languages you can also click on other languages to download the materials. So this is the link. I'm going to be dropping the link in the description. Once you click on that link, you get to this particular interface, and you can now download the materials from this interface. So after downloading the attendee materials, this is what you are going to be having. When you open the folder, you are going to be having 3 folders. Data folder. So it is in this data folder you have access to all your data. You open that. This is the letter folder, which contains instructions on how to build the dashboards. You can see lab 0 to lab 5. So lab 0 is just prerequisites and document structures, while lab 1 to lab 5 is where you have the main contents. When you also go to your reports, you are going to be seeing solutions to each lab, and also see the desired final reports. And also you can see the slide which I used, Dashboard in a Day slide. So this is this particular slide. You can also have access to it as an attendee. So now when you go open the data, now you can see we are having 3 folders. Then we're also having some images here, and also some files here, which I'm going to be explaining later on in subsequent labs. So the international sales contains sales of various countries. You can see it here: Australia, Canada, Germany, Japan, Mexico, and Nigeria. While you can see the team, we have the team folder here, which are going to also be using subsequent lab. And we have US sales, which contains the sales of United States. So this contains the sales of United States, while that of international sales contains the sales of other countries. So we're going to be loading all this data into Power BI, and we have BI dimensions, which also contains some metadata which we are going to be working with. So let's just have a view of our files in Excel. So as you are looking at now, this is the view of one of our files that we are going to be working with. So currently now you are looking at BI dimensions. So these BI dimensions now you can see is containing it is an Excel workbook containing 3 Excel sheets. As you can see, products, which is the product details of our products. We also have manufacturer details. You can see it with also a link to their logo. I see the details of the manufacturer and the links to their logo. They also have what? Geography, which is also geographical details. As you are seeing now, this list contains geographical details. Then next is our sales data, which contains the details of the sales that was made in United States, transactions that was made in United States. You can see the product ID, the date the transaction was made, the zip code, that is the location where the transaction was made. We have the number of units. The units is the number of items that was bought, and also we have the revenue made on that particular transaction. The same thing also applies when you go to the international sales. So this is international sales. So let's view that of Nigeria, for example. So this is also that of Nigeria. I can also see it is similar to that of the United States. So that is for other countries, while the sales is only for United States. So all this data we are going to be working with in Power BI, we are going to be building a dashboard based on this particular data. So now as you are looking at the screen, this is a Power BI window where you can build your reports and also build your visuals and dashboards. So now first of all, we need to get our data that we're going to be working with, the data I explained previously. So now we're going to be using the get data icon, which is at the home tab. So I'm going to be explaining the Power BI interface later on. For now, let's just concentrate on getting our data. So we have two options. You can actually import directly from an Excel workbook. So then we can also use the get data. We can have connect to data from multiple sources. So you can have access to connect to data from multiple sources, video sources. So by clicking on the get data now, you have a list of the common data sources which you can connect your data through. We have an Excel workbook, we have Power BI data sets, data flows, data vars, SQL Server, analysis services, text/CSV files, web or data feed, blank query, and Power BI template apps. So these are like common data sources. You can also view more data sources by clicking on the more. And once you click on the more, you're going to be having a list of a lot of data sources which you can connect to. You can connect to from Power BI. So you can see a lot of them. We also have connection through using Python and R scripts. So we have connection through Python and R scripts. So Power BI also allows you to connect to R scripts or a Python script. So you can see any of them. So if any of your data source falls in here, you can just click on it and click on connect. It allows you to connect to that particular data source. So our first data source we are going to be connecting to now is called the BI dimension data set, which is actually an Excel workbook containing multiple sheets. So I'm just going to click on Excel workbook. Since BI dimensions an Excel workbook, I'll click on Excel workbook and you can see it has already opened that particular folder for me. So I can just click on desktop to access it back. Instructor, click on data, click on USAs and click on BI dimension. So BI dimension is an Excel workbook. That's why it is the only file that is showing in this particular file explorer. So I'm going to click on open. So you can now see that I have a window that's showing me that Power BI has already connected to that particular data source. So now if I also have a preview of this particular data, you can see it is listing all the sheets inside my workbook. I can just click on it. I can see I'm going to be having a preview of each sheet under this particular BI dimension workbook. So I'm going to click on geography. You can see I can have a view of manufacturer. I can also have a view of products. So now what if I want to now load it? I want to load this particular data set. You can see now I'm having all the options blank. So I have to click or check on each particular sheet. When I check on that of product table, check on that of geography, check on that of manufacturer, then you can now see that of product is a repetition of product table, so I'm not going to check on it. So I have two options now. I can either load my data sets directly to Power BI or transform the data. So most of the time your data is going to be becoming messy. I can see this is a messy data, so you always transform your data before loading it into Power BI. So you can only load your data into Power BI if you are sure that the data is clean and is not full of errors or it doesn't need any transformation. So I'm going to click on transform data. So by clicking on transform data, now I have a window opened for me called Power Query Editor. So the Power Query Editor allows you to perform transformations on your data set. At any time you load connect a data source into Power Query, we call it queries. So each particular data source now we can call it a query. You can now see that we have 3 queries here. So in the Power Query Editor now, as you're looking at it, we have 3 panes. We have queries by the left hand side. We have the main pane where our data is going to be displayed for us, and also have the query settings, which allows you to set, which has the properties, allows you to change the name of your query or apply steps, which allows you to see the transformation you have applied on a particular query. So all the transformations you have already applied, or all the steps you have already applied in a particular query, you can be able to see it under the applied steps. So now, just like an Excel spreadsheet, that's how you're going to be viewing your queries in Power Query Editor. But the only difference is that you cannot edit the contents of this particular data. So if you want to edit your content, you have to go back to the main data source and edit it in that place. So this place is just for transformation of your data set or your queries, and also to clean it and if it is messy.
So now by the top left hand side, you can see we have file tab, we have home tab, we have transform tab, we have add column tab, we have view, tools, and help. So these are the various file tabs we have. The file tab allows you to perform file manipulations or operations. The home tab, you have common operations. At the home tab, we have transform, allows you to perform transform operations. We have add column, allows you to perform column operations. We have also the view, allows you to customize the view of a Power Query editor. We also have the tools, and we also have the help. So these are the various tabs which we have. You can see we have a list of our 30 queries which we just loaded. So we have other data which we need to load. That is the international sales, and we also have the United States sales. So I'm going to click on new source. Now, since I'm already at the Power Query editor, I don't need to go to Power BI to be able to connect to my data source. I can connect to my data source from Power Query editor. So now the next file is a CSV file, which is that of for the United States. I'm going to be clicking on sales file here and click on open. So now I can see a preview of the United States sales, and I'm going to be clicking on OK. Now the next I'm going to be doing now, the next file I'll be carrying now is for that of the other countries. So now I can either select for each country, because we're having 6 countries. I can either connect to each country by just clicking on CSV, but that's going to take much of our time. So we have another way of doing that. We can just connect to the whole folder, since all the files are under a single folder. So I'll just click on more. So Power BI allows you to connect to a data source through its folder. So if you have various data sets inside a particular folder, you just click on folder here. Once you click on folder, you click on connect. So now it's going to ask you to give the file path for that particular folder. So I'm going to be clicking on browse. So once I click on browse, click on this PC, I'm going to click on the folder path, desktop. So I'm going to click on instructor, I'm going to click on data, I'm going to click on international sales, I'm going to click on OK. So because all my country files are under this particular international sales folder, now click on OK. So now by clicking on OK, now you can see it's already listed all the files under here. You can see already showed me all the files which I want to load into my Power Query editor. So now I have 2 options. I can either combine and transform the data or transform the data. So combine and transform the data is you can only use that when you know that your data sets or the files in that particular folder are sharing the same columns, just like we're having now. So this is the sales for various countries now, which means they have similar columns, so similar variable names. So instead of having multiple queries inside our Power Query editor, why don't we just combine them into one particular query and make our life easier for us? So we know that since the country column is already there, it's going to be able to identify each sales or each transactions for a particular country. So I'm going to click on combine and transform data. So when I click on combine and transform data now, so you can see it's showing me a preview of all the merged files together. So I'm going to be clicking on OK. So you can now see that I already loaded the international sales for. So you can see a view of what we have in the international sales. So now you can actually customize the view of what you are seeing here, because Power Query editor actually loads your top 1000 rows for you. By default, that is, it even loads your top 1000 rows of data sets. So you cannot view all your data sets in Power Query editor, but you can actually view the profiling of all your data sets. So you can click on column profiling based on top 1000 rows. So column profiling is just showing you information of your queries, the information of each particular query. So column profiling based on top 1000 rows will give you information based on your top 1000 rows, while column profiling based on entire data set will give you information based on your entire data set. So you only use column profiling based on entire data set when you know that the data set is not large. In terms of large data set, it might actually take long for you to get the column profiling of it. For example, the sales now are dealing with millions of rows. So you can see if I click on column profiling based on entire data set, you can see it's taking long now to give me this particular information. So this information that we're actually viewing here is called the column quality. So it's also part of the column profiling, and you can actually turn it on or turn it off by clicking the view tab. You can see column quality. I can turn it off. I can also turn it on by clicking on this particular checkbox. So the column quality shows you how quality your column is. Are you having errors in your column, or are you having empty values in your column? While we also have column distribution, it allows you to show you the distribution of the values in your column. So you can be able to know the distinct values and also the unique values in your column. So now you can see on this particular product ID column, this is for the sales. So let me go to the product table. So if I click on the product ID, now I can see that each particular product has an ID. So which means no 2 products can have similar ID. So that's why we're having 1000 unique values. So a unique value is a value that doesn't repeat itself in a column, while a distinct value is a value that, so if it is a value that even though it repeats itself more than once, then it can also be counted. It is going to be counted as 1. So which means that unique values can be distinct values, but distinct values can't be unique values. So that is why we're having 1000 distinct values and 1000 unique values. So each particular ID is unique because it is not repeating itself. That is why it is called a unique value. Why? What of if we are having what? 2 ID, 1 and 1? Then that 1 is now going to be counted as 1. So which means we are counting the number of values we have in that particular column. So now column distribution allows you to what? View such information. They also have column profiling, which allows you to what? List or allows you to see all the values you have in a particular column. For example, now let me click on category. Now I can be able to see the distribution of each particular category under my column. I can ask if the column profiling shows me that urban are much more than what rural, then mixed, and what youth. If I also want to view for the entire data set, because now under column statistics you can see it is showing 1000 count. It's showing that the count is 1000, which is not so, because the column profile is based on 1000 rows. So let me make it now based on the entire data set. By making it based on the entire data set, you can see now the count is 2412. Our error is 0, and I have empty values, which is 2334. These are information which you can view on your column profiling. So now let me uncheck the column profiling and also uncheck the column distribution. So now going back to our home tab, now we are now going to start what? Transforming each of our queries one by one, starting from products table. So the first query that we're going to be editing now is the products table. So you can see the products table. First of all, I'm going to double click on this to change the name. I'm going to change it from products table. I'm going to be changing it to products. So you can see I've already named it as products. You can now see the columns that we have. We have product ID, products. This is like product name. We have the category. We have manufacturer ID, and also have what's price. So close to each name, you are going to be seeing a particular icon. So this icon, it allows you to be able to change the column type for a particular column. Like now for that of product ID, you can see 1, 2, 3, which means it is a whole number. So when you click on this icon, you see the list of column types. So you can see for the products, we're having what? ABC. So now our product ID is okay. You can see that our column quality for the product ID is okay. So next, we also go to the products column. So this particular product column now, you can see we have the product name and the product segment. And this product name and segment are separated by a pipe. So we need to split this column into two, so that we're going to have the product name separate, and also are going to have the product segment separate. So I'm going to right click on this and go to the option split column by delimiter. So when I click on split column, I'm going to see various options of splitting a column. So I'm going to split this particular column by delimiter. So splitting it by delimiter is telling me to specify the kind of delimiter I have. Currently, I'm having a pipe as a delimiter. So I'm going to be giving in the pipe as my delimiter inside this particular option. I can also have comma, colon, or equal sign, semicolon, space as delimiter. Currently, I'm going to be giving my pipe. So that is my delimiter in this case. And I'm going to click on OK. So you can see I've already split this column into two. First of all, the product name. The second is the product segment. And any transformation or steps you applied on a particular query are going to be seen it under apply steps in that particular query. You can see here now it is showing me all the steps I've already applied in this particular query. If I click on the crosshair on this change type, and I also click on the crosshair of this split column by delimiter, you can see it has already reverted back to the initial state the query was. So now I can also access the split column by delimiter by clicking on the home tab and click on what? Split column. Click on this drop down of the split column. I can now click on by delimiter, and by clicking on by delimiter, I can now give the pipe. So you can also already given the pipe and OK, and I still have what I have initially. So I can double click on this now to give my name. This is going to be my product name. I'm going to call it name, or let me just say products. I can also double click on this now and call it segment. This is product segment. So you can now see I have my segment and also my product, and all of them are having text type. So I'm going to leave them the way they are. Next is my category. So under this category, I can notice that my column quality is telling me that I have 97% empty values. So what happened is that when they were entering this data, so the way the data was entered, each product has a specific category. So products under that particular category were not typed in. So it was assumed that if you see a blank space under a particular category, then that product belongs to that category. But because I'm going to be loading this into Power BI and cannot work with the data like that, so we need to fill all these null values by the category above it. So when you also go to another category, you're going to be seeing rural, which means products under this particular rural having blank values belong to the rural category. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to do a fill down. So I'm going to go to my transform, and under transform you see fill down and up. So fill down means that fill all the blank values by the value that we have above it. So it's going to be filling all these null values by mix, and when it goes to rural, it's going to be filling all the values by rural, and so on and so forth. So that is what we are going to do now. I'm going to click on fill down, and you can now see that all these values are already filled, mix, 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 and mix. So you can see we're having what mix all through. You can also see that the step I applied now, fill down, is already showing under my applied steps. So now you can now see that I have no error, and my column quality is showing that I have no error and empty values. I can also see my text type is a text. So now our manufacturer ID is also okay. It is a whole number. You can see it is a whole number. The next is also the price. So because at times we're going to be using the price for calculation, we cannot be leaving it together with the currency. So we're going to be splitting this column into two. So we can also use the splits by delimiter I used earlier on by right clicking, and split column by delimiter. Now in this case, the delimiter is a space. You can see that's already automatically detected that the delimiter is a space. Then I'm going to click on OK. You can now see I have my two columns. But there's also another method which you can use is splitting a particular column. We call this column by example. So I'm going to go to my add column and click on column from examples. Now what this does is that you are going to give an example in a particular row, and Power Query automatically detects the way you want other values to be. So I'm going to be typing 412.13. So by typing 412.13, you are telling Power Query that I want other row values to be created by giving me only the number excluding the currency. So I'm going to type enter on my keyboard, and you can see I'm having it. Then I double click on this, and I can call this MSRP. And I click on OK. So the same thing also I'm going to apply for the currency. I can click on price, then click on column from examples, and I can now type in USD. So you are telling Power Query that you should create these USD values for other rows also. Then click on enter, then double click on this and type in currency. Then now click on OK. You can now see that I have my currency and also have my MSRP column. So which means I don't need this price column again, since I already splitted these values in. I've already splitted this particular column into two. So I'm going to right click on this and click on remove. Now I already have MSRP and currency. I'm going to double click on this and change it to price, because why we left it as MSRP is because we cannot have two columns having the same name. So I'm going to change it back now to my price. So you can now see my column quality for all these particular values is okay. So which means that I'm done transforming this particular query products. So the next query we are going to be talking about now is our geography query. So our geography query contains the information of various locations all over the globes. So you can see that the geography query is also messy. So now if you look at it, we are seeing some redundant rows, as you are seeing, row 1 and 2. And our column names is actually row 3. So we want to remove this query column names that we're having now and giving our actual column names. So first of all, now what I'm going to be doing now, I'm going to be removing these rows. So how we do this is go back to the home and we click on the option remove rows. So we can either remove top rows or remove bottom rows. In this situation, we are removing top rows, which are the first two rows which we don't need. So we're going to be saying removing the top two rows, and I click on OK. So this is going to remove the top two rows. And now what of our column names? How we do this? We are now going to be making this row as column name. So we are going to use our first row as headers. You click on the option use first row as headers, which is also available under your home tab. So I'm going to click on this particular option. I can now see that these particular columns have already been given their actual column names. So one thing I need to know now is that zip code sometimes can be alphanumeric. So we're not going to be leaving the data type of the zip code as a numeric. We're going to be making it to be a text. So I'm going to be clicking on this 1, 2, 3 and click on text because of situation where zip code can be alphanumeric. So what I'm going to do is going to replace the current. I'm going to click on replace current to replace the current step. Now also have that of the city. So some of the times you are going to be seeing some error and empty values. We are going to leave it as that because we don't have information regarding some particular location. You can see that of the city, the state, the region, and also these districts. And we also have that of country. So some of these empty values are going to be leaving as that because we don't have information regarding some particular location. Next thing I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be changing my geography query now. I'm going to be changing it to geography. So one more thing also in our geography query is that we can click on the drop down of the country to see the various countries that we're dealing with. So I'm going to click on this particular drop down. It is telling me that list may be incomplete. This is because it's showing me for the first 1000 rows. So I'm going to click on load more to get all the values under this particular columns. So I'm now going to be seeing, you can now see all the countries I'm having. I can see I'm having some particular null values. So let me uncheck on select all and click on null, so that I'm going to be knowing what these null values are. So you can see that I'm having what? Some countries, I'm having some locations without what? Country values. So now let me now clear the filter. So now what I'm going to do to remove those null values, I'm going to what? Click on this drop down and click on load more. And I'm now going to click on what? Remove empty. So remove empty is going to now remove all the null values under this particular column called country. When I now click on drop down, you can now see that I'm having all of them, both of them what? Blank and null unchecked. So okay, so this is now done for the cleaning under our geography query. Next we go for the manufacturer also. So the manufacturer, I'm just going to double click on this and change the M to an uppercase and click on enter. So the manufacturer also have a similar problem to that of the geography. We have what? Rows which we don't need. So this is row 4, 5 and 6. So now instead of clicking on remove rows, let's just use keep rows this time around. Now we're going to be keeping the top 3 rows. So I'm going to click on keep rows, keep top rows, keep top 3 rows. So I'm going to type 3, then okay. So now I'm already clicking on my top 3 rows. So this manufacturer is having details about the logos of various organizations, including our own organization, Van Hasdale. So we are also done with that now. You can see that it is we're having our column names as what? Row names, and we want these column names to be row names. So what we need to do is to transpose this particular query. So I'm going to click on transform, and I'm going to now make the columns to be rows, and I'm going to make the rows to be columns. Then I'll now click on this particular option called transpose. So you can now see that now I'm having all my column names as column names the way they are supposed to be. Then what is now left for me now is to now convert this particular row, which is containing my actual column names, and remove these values I'm having here, column 1, column 2 and column 3. So I'm going to be making this row as my header. So I'm going to click on home, then click on use first row as headers. After clicking on use first rows as headers, you can now see that I have now a cleaned manufacturer query. The next query now that I'm going to be transforming now is the sales query. And I told that this particular sales query contains information for sales transactions that happened in the United States. You can now see that we have the product ID, we have the date a transaction occurred, this is the zip code of that particular location, we have the units, that is the number of items that was bought, and also have the revenue that was made on each particular transaction. So now look at the product ID. Now we can see that the product ID is a whole number. You can see from the column quality also. You can also see that the dates also, we have the date, so you can click on it and you can now see that words and select the date type. So this is also okay. I will have the zip code. I told you that the zip code should be alphanumeric. I'm going to be clicking on 1, 2, 3 and click on text. So this is going to replace the current, because sometimes the zip code can either be a numeric value or a alphabetical value, or maybe an alphanumeric value. Then also have the units. This is the number of items that was bought. I also have the revenue. So I'm also going to be clicking on this particular revenue, this place here. I'm going to be making it a fixed decimal number. So this is now going to asking me to should I replace the current step or add a new step? I'm going to be replacing the current step. So this is it for the United States query. So the next query now that we're going to be talking about now is the international sales. So I'm going to be clicking now on the international sales. So you can see that this international sales contains various transactions in various countries. So now when we're actually importing the international sales, it actually changed the type for us. So what we are going to be doing now, we're going to be removing this particular step that was applied automatically by Power Query. And the reason why is that I want to show you something. So I'm going to filter now for a particular country. I'm going to be filtering for Canada. So I'm going to load more. So now I'm going to filter only for Canada. Now I'm going to click on OK. By doing that, now I'm going to be getting information of only Canada, transactions made in Canada. You can now see that the zip code is showing me error. Well, these particular zip codes have actually been inputted, but the reason it is showing error is because you can see the data type under here is what? It is a numeric column type. And these zip codes are not actually numeric values, they are alphanumeric values. So what I'm going to be doing now, I'm going to remove this particular filtering I applied, and also remove the column type that was applied to me by Power Query automatically. So by doing that, now if I filter for Canada, go back and filter for Canada, You can now see that filtering for Canada now, you can now see my what? You can now see my zip code now showing me the values instead of an error. So this is because I've already removed the initial column types that were applied in all the columns. So now by removing that, we're going to be applying our own column type in each column. So we're going to be doing that one by one. So let me remove the filtering I applied now. And first of all, I'm going to remove this source.name. We don't need this particular column. So our product ID is actually a whole number. I'm going to be making it a whole number. And you can see we have the date, which is actually a date column type. Then we also have the zip, which I told you I'm going to be leaving it as text because of what? Alphanumeric zip code. They also have our units, which I'm going to be making it a whole number. Then we have revenue, which I'm going to be leaving revenue as fixed decimal number. Then we also have our country, which I'm going to be making it a text. So now international sales is sales transaction of other countries, while sales is that for the US. So we want to be joining these particular two queries to make a single query. So now I'm going to be clicking on sales and click on the option called append queries. So append queries allows you to join two queries by rows, while merge queries allows you to what? Join two queries by their column. So I'm going to be appending the queries now. So which means that international sales will be appended to what? Sales, so that we have a single query. So now it is telling me do I want to what? Append two tables or three or more tables. So I'm actually appending two tables, which is sales and international sales. So now it's going. I'm already on the sales query. So I'm going to be clicking on the international sales in this option of table to append. Then I will now click on OK. So when you check our sales, you can see that we don't have the column called country initially, but for international sales, we have the column called country. So because of that, when we appended it, it's now showing null values. So I'm going to take care of this particular null values. So I can either use find and replace to replace all these null values for USA, since the sales query is actually for USA. Or I can use what? I can create a conditional column. So I can go to add column, then click on conditional column. So this allows me to be able to create what? A conditional column. So my new column now is going to be called country name. So now what I want to do is that if a column name, I'm going to select a column name now, which I want to create a conditional column from, which is the column called country. So now if the value inside a particular column, which is country in this scenario, if that value it is what? Null, then create a new value inside another new column called what? USA. So this is a conditional what? Column that's going to be created. What if now the value inside that particular column, this column now country, is not null? Then what should now happen? Then what? Keep what? The value of that particular column. So that means it should what? Just keep the value of inside this particular country name. If we see a value of null inside this country column, then create a new value inside the new column that we're creating as USA. But if that particular value inside this column country is not null, then leave the value as it is in the new column. Then we'll click on what? OK. So you can now see we have a what? Conditional what? Column created. So now I'm going to remove this column and I'm going to double click on this and call it country. And I'm going to be changing it to a text. So you can now see now that we have already what? Transformed this sales. So because we already appended international sales to sales, this particular one is going to load in Power BI. So to make it not to load, I'm going to right click on it and off this and uncheck this enable load. So which means that it is not going to be loaded into Power BI. You want to check the dependencies of various queries, you can click on view and click on query dependencies. So you are going to be seeing how each query is interrelated. You can see the queries that we have. You can see the various queries we have. You can see this. You can see all the queries. This is for sales and international sales. When you also click on this, you can see for products, for geography, manufacturer. When you click on this, you can see that we actually initially add files from folders, and also those files from folders, this is international sales. They also have that of the sales. So you can see how each query depends on another query up to the source file. So now before we now finish our transformation, the last thing I'm going to do now, I'm going to filter for the years. So I'm going to go back to the sales now and click on this drop down and click on date filters and click in the previous. So I'm not going to be using all the years for now. So I'm going to be using in the previous what? 4 years. So I'm going to click on years and put what? 4 year. So it's going to give me data for the previous what? 4 years. So which is from 2020 till 2022. Then now I can click on file and click on close and apply. So you can now see now that my Power BI, my queries have already been loaded. When I click on this particular icon called data, I'm going to explain this later on. You can now see all the tables that I am having. So this is how you can clean your data in Power Query and load it into Power BI. And most of the time I'm going to be using Power Query a lot because I'm going to be working with messy real life data.